In this video, we are going to talk about few financial closing related certification questions. So the first one, when adding a bank to the bank directory, which field is required? Is it company code, opening date, currency, or country? So actually we are adding bank to the bank directory. Here we use country. Country is the required field. You must define the country, bank code, and bank name when defining a new bank. The details for company code are maintained on the house bank and bank account level. The opening date and currency are maintained per bank account. So as we discussed in our previous video, to define the bank we need to define the country. If we want to define a new bank, we need to define with country, bank code, and bank name. First we need to define in which country that bank is located and bank code and the bank name. The details for company code are maintained on the house bank and bank account level. So the details for the company code are maintained on the house bank and bank account level. The opening date and currency are maintained per bank account. The opening date and currency are maintained per bank account. So for the details for the company code are maintained at house bank level, house bank and bank account level. So this is the first one. On which level do you maintain the bank directory? So it is like client level. So banks are defined on the client level and are assigned to a country. Since you may be having many company codes, customers and suppliers using the same banks, it makes sense that these are defined at the highest level. If you pay attention, part of this question can be answered at least partially by the previous question. When writing items for the certification, we try not to have cases like this where an answer for one question is implied by a different question. What is defined in the bank account connectivity path settings? What is defined in the bank account connectivity path settings? Payment approvers for workflows, business partner assigned to the bank, house bank account ID details, relevant profit center and segment. What is defined? Bank account connectivity path settings. So payment approver, so business partner. So the answer is C. The connectivity path is where you define the connection between a bank account and the house bank. The business partner is defined in bank details. The payment approvers are defined in the bank account signatory details, and the profit center and segment can be assigned in the account additional details. So the connectivity path is where you define the connection between a house bank and the bank account. So house bank account ID details. So payment approvers for workflows. are defined in the bank account signatory details. So it's a kind of approval, right? Signatory details. The business partner is defined in bank details, and the profit center and segment can be assigned in account additional details. When creating a bank as a business partner, what roles are assigned to the business partner by default? Sorry. When creating the bank as a business partner, what roles are assigned to the business partner by default? As a business partner, maybe general, supplier and customer. Let us see. C, D and E. Sorry. It's general, financial services and bank. The correct answers are the bank role, the financial services role and the general role. The general role is always assigned. You can't create a business partner without it. For the others, remember that we can't create fake answer options. So the obvious ones are the actual correct ones here. When creating a bank, you don't assign a customer or supplier reconciliation account at any point. So the system wouldn't be able to create the customer or supplier role in the business partner master record. So what are the differences between holding and parking documents? There are two correct answers. So difference between holding and parking: the held document does not have a document number assigned, correct. The held document can be incomplete, correct. The parked document can trigger workflow processes, correct. The parked document is considered for financial statements. Yeah, everything is correct. So we need to find what are the differences between holding and parking documents. Interesting. So yeah, the held document doesn't have a document number assigned. The parked document can trigger workflow. Held documents don't receive a document number, though the user assigns an identifier to be able to retrieve them. Only document parking is integrated with SAP Business Workflow. On the other hand, both parked and held documents can be saved incomplete, and neither held nor parked documents are included in financial statements. Okay. On which level is the document parking workflow variant assigned? On which level is the document parking workflow variant assigned? Company code level. You assign the workflow variant to each company code. You can view the assignment also in global settings for the company code. How can you differentiate the document parking workflow process on the business partner level? How can you different document parking workflow process on the business partner level? Assign different workflow release group, assign different payment method, assign different business partner groupings, different responsible organizational, maybe C, no, A. Workflow release group, assign different workflow release group. You assign the workflow release groups in the company code details screen of the business partner roles for financial accounting customers and suppliers. You assign the workflow release group in the company code details screen of business partner roles for financial accounting customers and suppliers. This way you can control the release strategy separately for different customers and suppliers in your system. So it is workflow release group. Next question is true or false. Sub workflows define the number of release levels in the document parking workflow process. Yes, here you define the special category including the number of releases. The sub work to the based on different amounts. You can use the sub workflow example to based on different amounts. Process of general entry have. So he can approve, reject it, and he can submit it. B is a processor reject the document entry. This is the term selected by SAP to put a journal entry in waiting. Delete is a very rare function in SAP S/4HANA when it comes to documents by design. On the other hand, park means basically the same as suspend, but it's not the correct term here. Which values can you define as prerequisites for triggering the general journal entry verification workflow? Can you define as prerequisites? So one is should be source company code and cost center and profit center. No, account group, cost center and source company code. Okay, account group. The correct answers are account group, source company code and cost center. In addition, you can also use the threshold value. In many cases in which there are more than 3 correct options, the easiest ones are not chosen to be included in the certification. Here value is very obvious prerequisite. Okay, the profit center option is a good distractor because it mirrors the cost center, which is a correct answer. The target company could just place the source or target option. It is not as strong a distractor though. Okay, why would you choose to implement the document parking workflow for journal entry verification compared to the general journal entry verification process? Why would you choose to implement the document parking workflow for journal entry verification compared to the general journal entry verification process? Okay, you do not use SAP Fiori. You need to define two-level verification. You are running SAP S/4HANA 1610 and you do not know how to configure the new functionality. No, the answer is the general journal entry verification functionality requires SAP Fiori. General journal entry verification process requires SAP Fiori. Although you should really never have to work on an SAP S/4HANA system without SAP Fiori, there are a number of customers who have chosen this path, the delivered workflow process in a single step, but you can create your own processes with two verification levels. The new functionality was introduced with SAP S/4HANA 1709, so if you are working in a 16, it won't be available. Finally, you should never use lack of knowledge as an excuse for not doing something. You are responsible for figuring it out. What are the basic definitions you make for validations? Validations: prerequisite, check and message. A, B and E. The prerequisite must be fulfilled for the system to perform the checks if the validation is true. The prerequisite must be fulfilled for the system to perform the checks if the validation is true. The message defined is raised if the check isn't confirmed. Rules and sets can be used to define the prerequisites and check details. At which levels can validations and substitutions for financial accounting be defined? So line item, complete document and header. A, D and E. Each validation and substitution is defined for specific column point. The same validation or substitution can't be used in two different column points. For financial accounting, you define them at the level of document header, line item or complete document. A single substitution step can be defined to substitute multiple fields in a document. A single substitution step can be defined to substitute multiple fields in a document. A single substitution step can be defined to substitute multiple. True, although most times a step fulfills a single substitution prerequisite, you can change multiple fields with a single step. This way you can trigger changes even if there aren't direct field dependencies defined through assignments in the master records. Changes even if there aren't direct field defined. Okay. Multi-sets can be created if they combine data from basic sets that all group the same characteristic. False. Multi-sets combine any kind of basic set independent of the underlying characteristics. The statement here fits the description of a single set which indeed combines basic sets defined for the same attribute. The statement here fits the description of a single set which indeed combines basic sets defined for the same attribute. What is the main motivation for creating rules for substitution and validation? So to reuse in multiple steps. You can use rules in multiple steps of validation and or substitution, so you can speed up the time required to create them by reusing them. The tools, fields and logic used are the same as those available when maintaining prerequisite and check data. What are the steps in customizing of data archiving? What are the steps in customizing for data archiving? Defining archiving storage locations, perform cross-object customizing, define table partitions, activate data aging objects, perform object-specific customizing. So what are the steps in customizing of data archiving? So defining archiving storage locations, perform cross-object customizing and perform object-specific customizing. The sequence of customizing steps is defining archiving storage locations. So our answers are A, B and E. Perform cross-object customizing and finally customize the object-specific settings. The table partitions and aging object activation steps are part of the activation process for data aging. So these are the customization steps, and defining table partitions and activating data aging objects are really part of the activating process. What is the reason for performing data archiving? To have fewer downtime cycles? No. To control hardware requirements? To protect data? No. Backup data on a separate drive? To control hardware requirements? By performing data archiving, you can maintain stable hardware because the data is kept at a constant stage. With data archiving, you can have shorter downtime cycles but not fewer ones. Data is never lost. Data archiving has no effect on this. And data archiving is not a data backup. Delete ledger account for a company code. You can also remove. I think it should be false. You need to delete a general ledger account from all company codes to be able to delete it from the chart. In general, deleting anything in SAP S4HANA which system of record is only performed after many dependency and consistency checks. You execute data aging separately for each data aging object. False. You create object groups that have multiple aging objects combined for sequential processing. This makes it easier and more efficient to administrate the aging run and you can be sure you are not forgetting aging objects. Which of the following is the difference between data aging and data archiving? Data aging allows you to retrieve the aged data for analysis. Data aging frees up memory space. Data archiving removes data from the database. Data archiving has advanced logging capabilities. So, data archiving removes data from the database is the correct answer. And the archiving process physically removes data, whereas data aging moves it to the historical partition. In both cases, the data is retrievable or swiftly. Both have a positive effect on the used memory, and both offer powerful log tools to check the results of the run. Which of the following is the difference between? On which levels can you maintain useful life for documents of a company code in the context of data aging? So it is document type and account type. The aging customizing allows you to control the useful life per company code and account type. So you can define a different retention period for general ledger accounting documents compared to, for example, asset accounting documents. You can also configure the useful life per company code and document. So these are the few questions related to financial closing. Thank you so much for watching this video. We will meet in the other video.